Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to comic book characters you may or may not know about. If you have read The King in Black, then you already know who this is. This is Knull. Knull. Okay, so to start, Knull was a benevolent deity that ruled the Abyss, which was the existential chasm. God, words. That existed between the destruction of the sixth cosmos and the creation of the seventh cosmos. But if truth be told, he was merely the avatar for the primordial darkness that existed even before him. Originally content with just sleeping inside the void, he was actually awakened by the light of creation when the Celestials started creating the universe. I don't know, I'd be pissed off too if you woke me up from my nap. So, of course, at this, he was pissed off that his kingdom of darkness was basically being like minusculed. And he created a sword out of complete darkness called the All Black. And of course, he used the All Black to decapitate the Celestials. Well, one Celestial in particular. He was cast back into the void by the other Celestials, and he used the severed head of the dead Celestial to temper his sword and its cosmic energies. So basically hell-bent on devouring the light that had usurped his kingdom, he manifested a symbiotic suit of armor from the eldritch darkness. What are these words? That he commanded. And from there, he embarked on a genocidal mission to destroy Celestials and basically life itself, becoming a symbol of terror for billions of years. Sometime in the midst of his campaign, he created an artificial planet from the darkness that he controlled to serve as his throne world and base of operations. As he started to practice his ability to create life out of darkness itself, he was using the exoteric latitude as a dumping ground for his failed creations. And a millennia later, it became known as Exelon. His early creations included Mr. E, Ka, and Shadow Man. So he then declared himself the divine nexus of the abyssal entities' hive mind and sent them out into the cosmos. They conquered countless planets, devoured entire civilizations and pantheons, extinguished stars, and smothered several planets in eldritch darkness. The few gods that he did spare were forcibly put into his army again. At some point during his attack and war on the light, he came across Silver Surfer, who was freeing a world from Knull's control with power cosmic. However, after a brief but very intense fight, Knull defeated Silver Surfer and infected him with the Abyss, turning him into the Void Knight. However, Silver Surfer was freed from Knull's control by Ego, the living planet, who also then helped him escape when Knull tried to chase him down on one of his symbiote dragons. He was able to chase Silver Surfer down, and they did start fighting again, but this fight was very brief because Silver Surfer expended the last of his power cosmic to create a star, which basically covered him in plasma and shot him across the cosmos. This defeat, of course, was temporary because Knull did recover and resume his conquest of the cosmos. After his fight with Silver Surfer, he did engage in a fight with an army of gold-armored gods, and he slaughtered every single one of them except for one. I don't know why I said it. He slaughtered all but one of them. He did pursue after the god, and he impaled him on All Black. However, he too was impaled through the head by the god's spear. Both Knull and the dying god crash landed on a desolate planet, and All Black left Knull and came into the hands of Gore, who then became Gore the God Butcher. And that's kind of important because Gore the God Butcher is going to be in a new Marvel movie. I'm pretty sure it's Thor. You're welcome. While he was recovering for over a century, he started playing around with his powers again and discovered that he could create parasitic symbiotes out of the living abyss and use them to control lesser beings, therefore only corrupting life as opposed to eradicating it. His reign of terror came to an end in the 6th century when two symbiote dragons, one red, one black, had came to Earth, and they were named Grendel and Grendel's mother by the Danes. Grendel was stopped by Thor, and the connection that Knull had to several of the symbiotes was severed. So the hive mind ended up being tainted by feelings of honor and nobility, and it led them to rebelling against Knull and imprisoning him in the heart of Throne World. They renamed it Clintar, which is their word for cage. The symbiotes then created agents of the cosmos so that they could try to rectify basically everything that had happened in the past. So they had attached themselves to benevolent beings and try to correct past mistakes. At some point, the Silver Surfer, who does not seem to know how to mind his own business, came across Clintar and was devoured by it. However, he was able to free himself and get away. Centuries later, the Grendel symbiote was unearthed by S.H.I.E.L.D., and the Living Abyss was used to start their super soldier program called Sim Soldier. Using the psychic link between him and Grendel, Knull tried to assert his control over the hosts and drive them insane. He was able to control the dragon that broke free of containment, and it swallowed 4 of its 5 symbiote offshoots. Knull sent the symbiote dragon Grendel on a rampage through Manhattan, but it was stopped with the combined efforts of Venom and Spider-Man. As he manifested a avatar of his true form, he was able to strip the Venom symbiote from its host and try to cleanse it of the compassion and honor and feelings that it had developed while it was on Earth. And he was basically intending to absorb it with the rest of the Grendel dragon symbiote so that he could become stronger. So he then got confronted with Eddie Brock, but then showed Eddie like the true origins of the symbiotes and pretty much laughed at him for believing anything that Venom had told him otherwise, although I'm sure Venom kind of just was lost in the sauce anyway. And then he was able to break free of Clintar and start back on his conquest. Venom was freed from Knull by Spider-Man. However, Knull chose not to go after him and instead went after the Tyrannosaurus symbiote, which was like the last piece of the symbiote dragon that he actually needed. So Venom and the Tyrannosaurus symbiote reconnected or bonded, and it activated the hive mind. Once it did that, Knull had engaged in a fight with Venom, but he was stopped by like grenades. I think it's like a special type of grenades. After all of that, him and Venom went at it one more time. And during this fight, Venom's high-tech weapons arsenal was completely ineffective. He stripped Eddie of both of the symbiotes. However, his gloating of it was cut very short. And it was cut short because Eddie Brock detonated his entire arsenal, and the effect actually dissipated the avatar and put physical marks on Knull's body back on Clintar. So then, of course, he got pissed off, coated his avatar in the Grendel symbiote and tried to attack, but before he got a chance to, the Tyrannosaurus symbiote had coiled itself around him and pulled him into a blast furnace. And basically it yelled for Venom to keep the door shut, and he ended up being locked away. Like, his avatar was completely destroyed and his physical body was still locked up on Clintar. After that battle, a cult started by Scorn to worship Knull was created, and they obtained a sample of the Grendel symbiote as well as Cletus Cassidy's body, intending to make him Knull's new avatar. When the Grendel symbiote bonded with Cletus Cassidy's corpse, Knull reanimated and began talking to the serial killer. However, the details of the conversation are unknown. However, when Knull tried to take control of Cletus through the symbiote, he resisted Knull's control and the connection was severed. However, Carnage had desire to speak with Knull again, so Knull told him that he had to go find the codices in order to reactivate the hive mind. While he was doing this, of course, Knull was getting stronger and exerting his influence over not only the symbiotes of Clintar, but the ones stranded on Earth. Specifically, Riot, Agony, Phage, Lasher, and Scream. After Dark Carnage was killed by Venom and he absorbed Dark Carnage as well as the remaining codices, Knull was awakened, destroyed Clintar, and turned its remaining ones alive into a fleet of dragons. Using the living abyss to destroy entire planets by smothering them in darkness, he then began to speak with Eddie Brock's son, Dylan Brock, who was basically a spawn of Venom. And he's a symbiote human hybrid. He went about destroying the Kree-Skrull Alliance colonies as well as infecting all of the Celestials with the living abyss. Arriving at Earth, he quickly destroyed the Kree-Skrull ships that were left over, as well as very quickly overwhelming the Earth superheroes. He then emerged from one of the Celestials and said that he would make destroying the planet quick and painless if they gave up a human named Brock. He was then attacked by Sentry, who tried to take him out into space and rip him in half. However, he easily broke free of that, reversed the position, and tore Sentry in half, and he devoured the dark energy or the dark being that was dwelling inside of him. And this is what the reverse part looked like. Eventually, he got bored of the conflict and used his symbiotes to control the Avengers, the X-Men, and other superheroes. And then he encased the entire planet Earth in the living abyss. Venom offered himself as Knull's servant if Earth would be spared. He denied this, ripped the Venom symbiote from Eddie Brock, and pushed him off the building because the Brock he was looking for was Dylan. So he built a lair at the tip of the Empire State Building and was giving orders via his symbiotes, the symbiote-controlled superheroes, and avatars. He tried to take the Ghost Spider symbiote, the Ebony Blade, as well as the Sword of Fu Shi. However, he was defeated every single time by those who resisted his control and those who had the power to destroy his dragons as well as his avatars. He ended up reaching back in time and trying to get Mr. E to either destroy the Ebony Blade or use it to facilitate an earlier escape from Clintar, but Mr. E kept failing and was therefore destroyed. He ended up being stripped of most of his powers by the Valkyries when they severed his connection to the Celestial, the Headless Celestial, in the afterlife. When Dylan Brock entered the battlefield and started freeing people from Knull's control, he tried to attack Dylan but was interrupted by Thor. He recognized Thor as the one who almost defeated Grendel, the Grendel dragon symbiote, several centuries prior, and confronted Thor, but Thor was super unimpressed and just dismissed him as one of the gods of destruction that he's faced before. They began to fight, and he was overpowering Thor before Dylan had intervened, and he very quickly overcame Dylan and encased him in the living abyss. But this distracted Knull long enough for Thor to get a very good hit with Mjolnir and take off the bottom part of his jaw. Pissed off at this, of course, Knull ordered the symbiote controlled Celestials to raise the planet, and when Thor turned to go stop them, he was impaled by a necro sword that Knull had created out of the living abyss, as well as forming a new jaw. Knull makes it very clear that he intends on making Dylan his son by absorbing him in his power. However, unbeknownst to him, Tyrannosaurus, Eddie Brock, and Agent Antivenom have reconnected inside of the hive mind. They used the distraction that Thor and Dylan gave them so that they could infiltrate the hive mind center called the God Mind. The God Hive, my bad. Agent Antivenom bonded with a symbiote that Knull couldn't control and remanifested as a living dragon. When Knull realizes what's going on, he bonds with the Tyrannosaurus symbiote and confronts Eddie Brock so that he can kill him once and for all. However, Eddie Brock was able to escape the hive mind with the help of the Venom symbiote and was chosen as the God of Light's new host. Confronted by the Silver Surfer once more, Knull was very ready to restart the duel that they had before, but was interrupted by Eddie Brock in a cosmic version of Venom. He tried to escape while throwing everything he could at Eddie Brock, but Eddie was able to corner him at the top of the Empire State Building, strip him of his symbiote armor, and throw him to the ground. However, as you do with all incredibly powerful beings, Venom took him out to the sun, threw him into it, and destroyed him. And he tried to take over Dylan Brock's body, but he destroyed the living abyss with the sun as well, and defeated Knull and his empire. And of course, Knull's powers are as followed. He has divine physiology. He has symbiote creation and domination, as well as superhuman strength. He has living abyss manipulation, as well as dark energy manipulation. He has superhuman durability and immortality, self-sustenance, regenerative abilities. He also has shape-shifting, temporal manipulation, and flight. And he is also an expert combatant. And that is Knull. Again, if you haven't read The King in Black, I highly suggest it. It's actually one of my favorite storylines.